Servus, and welcome to another episode of Pro Hockey Pod, episode 49. For those of you guys watching, again, we're on the road. Figured what better time to do another episode than our hotel. Seems to be a common theme here. This week, another guy from just outside Burlington from Hamilton, Ontario. A guy that I actually grew up, we trained a lot together actually in the summer, even though we didn't really know each other. We kind of knew each other through Swartzy. But another guy that's worked his way up. Pretty crazy story, I would say. How he went through junior there and, has continued his career on, signing an NHL contract, now making his way over to Europe. Pretty happy to talk to this guy because I have a lot of questions. Welcome to the podcast, Tyler Gaudet.
Thanks, Harry. Appreciate you having me on here, buddy.
So we always like to start off kind of going back through like everyone's childhood. So as I mentioned, believe you were born in Hamilton, Ontario there. Like, what's the earliest kind of childhood memory you have of growing up there?
Earliest memory, I mean, nothing too specific, just I'm the youngest of five. All my siblings are very artistic. I was the one that was kind of the only one that really dove into sports full throttle. They all kind of dabbled in sports, but like I said, they're all artistic, and I have zero artistic talent at all. So childhood in Hamilton, the connection is not, I don't have any specific early memories of that. It's just kind of growing up with my family and just kind of, I dove into hockey right away. It's just something that attracted me at a young age. I think I wanted to play at 4. My mom wanted me to be a basketball player, and she coached basketball, and I wanted hockey so badly that I forced them to take me into it, basically.
Do you know like what? Because you mentioned like your other siblings there were more like kind of the artistic route. Like, do you know what kind of like drew you to the sport of hockey?
Honestly, I cannot remember. I don't know why I loved hockey so much. I was 4 years old. I think my first time ever playing hockey was 5. I did figure skating with my older sister. She's 4 years older than me. We did figure skating at 4. I mean, at that time, I was walking around the ice. I don't know why I wanted to be a hockey player so badly. I honestly can't remember, but I was adamant that I did not want to play basketball and I want to play hockey. So I bet my parents were upset that I chose hockey over basketball, a little bit more expensive, but they were great parents and they guided me through it.
So figure skating at a young age, obviously that explains why, I believe one of the reasons why you're such a good skater now. Like, was that something that like you continued with and just would try to, because anyone who's done figure skating knows it's way different than skating in normal hockey skates, but it ends up benefiting you down the road.
Yeah, so I don't actually want you to take that too seriously. I think that was probably, I took that maybe 2 or 3 times. Uh, Played normal like select hockey growing up. I think what took my skating to another level is I think when I was 9 years old, I joined a pretty popular name in Hamilton, Kelly Reed Hockey, and at that time he was pretty newish and he was taking on instructors at a younger age. I was a student of his young, and then by the time I was maybe 11, I was an instructor at 11 years old. So I was teaching hockey, skating while he was teaching me, and it was kind of like my job until I became pro. So I think that was the real reason. Figure skating was just an entry for me to put skates on, really. Yeah.
That's crazy though. So you were, as you said, you were instructing at 11. Like that's a big step. Like, Christ, me at 11, I don't think I could have been able to teach anyone anything. So like, while also being a student of this school that you said you started as a student, then you became an instructor. Like, what age groups were you working with, and what exactly were you teaching them?
Yeah, so it's interesting because as I got older, uh, late teens, 18, 19, right before I became pro, um, my teacher and friend Kelly, who's the owner of the business, would never even think about having a 10, 11, 12, 13, 14-year old as an instructor. And it's just kind of how his mindset changed as time went on because of how young that age is. But he was so new that he was just looking for help. Me and my good buddy Mark Rogers, we ended up becoming instructors at such a young age, and it just kind of worked out. You asked the age groups I did adults, 40
Right.
years old, 30 years old, people that didn't know how to skate. Um, Pretty weird for probably a 12-year-old at the time to teach adults how to skate. Adults are kind of stuck in their ways, and to try to tell them to do different things is tough to do it. But most of the time, he would direct me with a younger group. And then the ones we did do, he usually ran most of them, and I was more of a demonstrator of drills. So I would show how to do a drill properly, and then kids would imitate how I did it. So that's kind of how he structured it until I became an age that was a little bit older, and I would start running my own sessions.
I was gonna say like being 11, 12 years old and kind of being front and center there, having to communicate with these people, whether they were adults or even, late teens. Like that's a big step for someone at that age.
Yeah, I don't know if I personally really liked it. It was intimidating. I was always kind of nervous to do it, but it was my only job at the time, and I was getting paid a decent amount for it to do something I really enjoyed doing, which is hockey. And I was also working on my own skills, just like repetition of doing drills and skating and stuff. So I did like it and just kind of went with it. So
Did you do any other I'd like to ask this to people who are players and goalies, it's obviously goalie schools, but did you do any other like other hockey camps growing up?
um, I did other camps when I was younger. I did Valenosi, which is a popular name in Hamilton.
Mm-hmm.
He actually put a sticker on my head and put me in a group that wasn't good enough. And I basically didn't cut it in his camp at that time, so I ended up not going there. I did a couple other camps. I think it was Leo Pioni, I think his name is. I'm blanking on the name right now, actually. Just a couple of guys that were local Hamilton, and but Kelly Reed ended up being the one that was the prime one.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up being an instructor up until I was 20. So that was the main one I ended up doing.
You found someone you were comfortable with, so that's obviously
Yeah,
important.
he ended up being my boss, and then it grew into a friendship. And now Kelly is just generally a good friend of mine, and we still keep in contact all the time.
That's awesome. Good to hear. Kind of back to your kind of minor hockey path then. I was doing some research on you, and obviously Elite Prospects only has so much, but then I found you played in a tournament for a certain team. So growing up in the Hamilton area, I remember them being two teams. There was at least when I was growing up, there was the Hamilton Bulldogs and the Hamilton Reps. I believe you were part of the Reps side, if I'm correct, or you switched. I don't. Elite Prospect said you played a tournament for the Reps, so that's kind of what I'm going up. But what was your minor hockey path, and were you always playing at the AAA level? Did you have to start lower, work your way up?
So I believe I started in Lawfield when I was like 5, 6, 7 even, and then I think 8 years old is the first year you can
Mm-hmm.
play AAA. Um, I did a big bump from 7 to 8. So as a 7-year old, I was a defenseman playing for I don't this is so long ago. Might have been House League Lawfield. Um, and I had a good buddy, Remy Katopoulos, and he was a really good player, good forward, and his dad was also very involved in the hockey community. And the next year for AAA, um, he thought it'd be a good idea for me to try out for AAA. His son actually, who was better than me, much better than me at the time, actually decided to stay back, and he played a different league. But he convinced me to go out for AAA, and I went out for the reps. I went out as a centerman, and I actually made AAA reps team as an 8-year-old. And then I think I ended up playing AAA for the reps until I was 13. And then I made the transfer over to the Hamilton Junior Bulldogs at 13 to 16. I ended up playing my major junior year, where a lot of guys were going to junior C, junior B, junior
Mm-hmm.
A. I played one more year, AAA. I remember kind of a funny story with that was Hamilton was really strict on the district that you lived in. And I wasn't very happy being a part of the reps when I was a young kid. And I don't really care to say it now anymore. So my parents actually used my grandparents' address, which was in I guess it would be Glanbrook area, so it'd be
Mm-hmm.
Countess Stony Creek. which allowed me to be a resident that would be able to go for the Hamilton Junior Bulldogs because the reps wouldn't release me if I was a Hamiltonian.
Okay.
So it's kind of a funny transition I made in at a 12-year-old stage.
How was because I believe like the Hamilton Junior Bulldogs obviously played against like Burlington, Oakville. I think it was the SCTA it was called. Obviously we're 3 years apart, I believe. But like how was your team growing up there on the at least the Bulldog side? Like were you guys a competitive team? Were you middle of the pack?
For the Bulldogs?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we were a great team.
Yeah.
I think we won one tournament. It was actually the Burlington tournament, Burlington Horseshoe.
The horseshoe, the
And then we won
classic.
the Horseshoe. I don't know. I mean, if you're going to compare it on a provincial standard, I don't know if we were that great, but we ended up winning that tournament. I thought we had a pretty good team back then. If I were to look back on the guys on it now, we didn't really have many guys that really went on to be anything. So, I think at that time and age, I think we did pretty well. And honestly, that might have been the only tournament we won. I can't recall winning many other tournaments. So
That's a good one to win, to be honest, because it's like I'm just growing up playing in Burlington. Like we had that whatever it was. It was always your major year or minor year, whatever it was, and that was like always Christmas time, and it was circled on our calendar. Like as a Burlington, at least for me as a Burlington Eagle, we wanted to win our hometown tournament, and there was always a lot of teams, good teams, and it was good competition for sure.
do you remember the Tim Hortons tournament? What is that? Is that a summer league
I don't
tournament?
know. I didn't play that one. I just like
I won the Tim Hortons tournament. I just can't remember what that is. I might have won that on the reps, though. I don't remember if that was Bulldogs.
because reps. What were reps? Alliance.
Reps or Alliance, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Like the big tournaments like that come to mind for me is like obviously brilliant the horseshoe because we hosted, and then like, you have the Pee Wee Quebec tournament when you go to that. I know you did that. That was you were reps, so right?
That was reps. I was 12 years old.
Yeah.
I was 12 years old, yeah.
That's the only thing on Elite Prospects because Elite Prospects only goes so far. That was one thing like under the tournament section it said Hamilton reps, and that was the only reason I knew you played reps because everything else started
Yeah.
when you were playing like Pembroke and stuff. But the other one was like the Silver Stick tournament. Like that was, I think that was in Sudbury or something. That was like the big ones that like when you remember.
So I wouldn't even remember that one. So like if I had even backtracked more, the memorable ones for me would be the Pee Wee one, and I did the brick tournament.
Okay.
So that was probably one of the coolest tournaments I've ever done as a kid. So
Where was that?
That's the one that's in Edmonton.
Okay.
And it's strictly for 10-year-olds. And again, my connection was through my best friend at the time, Remy Giftopoulos. He was a very highly touted player at 10 years old, and I was not regarded at all. And because of that, I actually went out for just a tryout for pro hockey development, I think they're called. Yeah, pro hockey development. So it's I think Toronto has 2 teams representing in the brick tournament, and that's one of them. And I went out and I actually played as a defenseman, even though I've been a centerman. And I think I just played really offensive, and they liked me. And then they signed me, even though I played defenseman for the tryouts. They signed me as a centerman for that tournament, and it was just cool. We did a bunch of tournaments throughout the year, and then you end up going to like West Edmonton Mall and having that big tournament. It's actually pretty popular, and it was just a cool trip for me and my family to do, and that's something I remember. So that one and the Quebec Pee Wee tournament would be the 2 tournaments that for me resonate a lot in my youth hockey.
One of the coolest things, and I think you would agree, when we grow up and play minor hockey is when you can do the tournaments where you have to stay in a hotel. So obviously those 2 you would have to, and then other ones, wherever you're going, it's just it's good for the kids. Like you obviously want to play the games, but at the same time, it's more about like the hotel activity and stuff. And then the parents too. It's about kind of the camaraderie they have. Everyone's like, hey, we're meeting up in this room and so-and-so's room. And
did you ever do a Barrie one? There was a Barrie one.
Yeah.
I actually don't remember what it's called, but I love that hotel. They had like squash. They had a mini putt. They always had an outdoor rink in the winter. I couldn't remember the name of it if you asked me right now, but I just remember the hotel. And it's just as a kid loving that tournament because you got to go to the hotel and you just beg your parents like, hey, can you pay for my mini putt? Hey, can we go on the ice and do pond hockey and all that stuff? So It was. I agree with you. The hotels were great as a kid, and hanging with your teammates and stuff.
I think the Barrie one I did when I played for Peterborough because they were in our league then. We didn't do Burlington. It was an hour drive, so I don't think we would have stayed over if we had done it. But I definitely remember being in Barrie for a tournament. As I said though, the ones that come for me is like the Silver Stick one in Sudbury. We did one in Port Huron too. I don't know what that was, a Michigan tournament or something. But anyways, back to kind of your career here. You ended up kind of after minor hockey there, you end up making the jump to the Hamilton Red Wings there, which is in the OJHL or OJPHL. I don't know. They change their name every other year. It's hard to keep up with it. But I'm curious, like at this time in your career, um, obviously like myself, you weren't drafted to the OHL. I wasn't drafted either. Had you still had your thought on, because I always talk about, like, I like to talk about people from Ontario about this. Like, when we grow up, the OHL is everything to us. Like, that's like the next step for you. When you made the jump there to the Hamilton Red Wings, was your focus still about that route, like about the major junior OHL route? Or had you kind of said at the same time, maybe NCAA could be realistic because a lot of guys, get scholarships from that league. So I'm just curious kind of where your mindset was at this age.
So at that age, my mindset was purely NCAA. I was I considered myself a bit of a late bloomer. I was always the smallest guy on the team. Even at that time, 16 years old. Actually, 17 years old was when I played with the Red Wings. 17 years old, I was still pretty small. I think I got a little bit of height at the time. I might have been 6 foot, 175. Um, NCAA. It was always NCAA. I had good grades in school, so and I was in high school. I was focusing on being an honor student. I was just hoping to play well. Playing junior A. I'm just hoping for some school offers. Um, it got a little sticky for me with the Red Wings. Um, I'm not going to say any names, but the general manager at the time was kind of not really giving me names of schools that were potentially interested in me. And there was a lot of question marks for my career moving forward. And I didn't know if I had interest and I didn't know what to do. And a scout for Gatineau approached me and he kind of changed my mind of I was so, you know, focused on NCAA. And then when it seemed to be shut off because I wasn't receiving offers because the general manager wasn't giving me the names, I guess his ideology was he wanted to keep players on the Red Wings longer instead of letting us go to colleges. This scout came, approached me, and he gave me the speech about how you can always go back to school when you're older, and your hockey career is such a small window, and blah 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 blah. I didn't really even think about going to major junior at that time, but he kind of convinced me, and I want to take the shot, and uh, I don't want to skip ahead too much, but that's how I end up kind of switching paths and jumping to the QMJHL, um, and kind of going that route.
That's always like a big decision because as you know, you have that 5 year eligibility to play major junior, whatever league you're in. And as you said, you were playing 17 years old. Hamilton Junior Red Wings, you'd also played a year midge, as you mentioned. So you basically had burned 2 years and
Yeah.
had 3 years left. And like was that a tough decision for you to end up making the jump there because you end up going to Gatineau? Like, did you talk to your parents about it?
I definitely talked to my parents. I'm trying to, even right now as I'm talking to you, I'm trying to remember how that conversation went, and it just felt like the way the Red Wings organization was approaching my NCAA career and future, it wasn't seeming like it was going to happen. And this scout talked up how much I was going to be loved, how much opportunity I was going to get. He said everything perfect, that it just seemed like the right decision for me. And so, school could wait. I can always go to school. And he's not wrong in that regard. I could go to school tomorrow.
Hmm.
So it's not wrong what he did. It's just he persuaded me, and I took that shot, and I said, you know what? I think this might be the right way. If you guys think I'm this great and that so and so is going to love me and it's going to be all perfect, that I think I had that conversation with my parents, and I think I decided, and my parents were just they're going to side with my decision in the end, and I decided to make that jump.
It's good to have that family support, and obviously a big decision, as I mentioned. How was it making the jump for you? Because obviously, let alone you're jumping up a higher league, you're also moving away from home and moving provinces as well. You know, Gatineau's obviously in the QMJHL. I don't know how your French is, but I'm assuming there was a lot of French there. But
Mhm.
like, how was that adjustment for you?
Yeah, it was hard. Um, Obviously with my last name being Gaudet, uh, everyone assumed I was French. So they the coach was Benoit Gru. He would yell at me in French first time he saw me. No idea what he was talking about. Living away from home was the first time too. Um, so that was all definitely getting used to. The level of play was higher, and to be honest with you, I struggled. I was not the best player. I didn't do well in Gatineau. And if you look at my history, I got sent down halfway through the year. So, you know, I took the leap and it didn't work out for me, and I ended up getting sent down. So it's just kind of it was a big jump of faith, and that segment of my career, I struggled, and it just wasn't the smoothest path for me.
And as you mentioned, you're getting sent down, you go to Pembroke there. And I'm curious, like, and I think it's good to just kind of talk to the young listeners about this. At this point in your career, I believe, you're turning 19 years old this year. And like mentally, I imagine it wasn't easy for you because you would feel that, you took this leap and it didn't work out. Like, where was your mindset kind of when you were going to Pembroke there? Like, were you, I want to do the best I can and hopefully get another shot? Or were you starting to think, okay, I'm gonna go play junior for these 2 years and then, go to U Sports or CIS? Like what kind of where was your mindset at then?
So things have been kind of going rough for me with Gatineau for a while. We were doing our East Coast trip. We just played Halifax. I was able to see my sister in Halifax, which was nice. We played against like Nathan McKinnon, and I was 18 and he was 16. And when I first saw him, I thought he was a 20-year-old. He just looked amazing, and I was so shocked at that person. And then we played St. John's, and I remember like Huberto was on that team, and he was a big name at the time. And it was just like I seen these players, and they were so much more dominant than me at the time. And I was literally being put at defense just to fill a spot because Benoit Gru did not like me as a player. He did not like me, and he thought maybe I'd be okay as a defenseman. And it just wasn't working out. And while I was out in the East Coast, he had a meeting with me. He told me that he legit told me I was a horrible player. He said I would never play at this level again in my life. And he said he was going to release me. And he told me that when I was on the road in the East Coast. I'm not far away from home. So that was pretty devastating to have a coach just kind of be blunt like that to me. Uh, Hindsight now, I'm glad I proved him wrong in that regard. But at the time, I was pretty devastated. I thought my hot career was over. To be honest with you, I remember being alone in a park, and I was pretty upset. Uh, just kind of leave it at that, and just kind of took it day by day. But I remember being very upset. I thought my career was over when that happened. I was on the East Coast, and I think it was in between games, between the St. John game, and we might have been going to PEI or something. It was just I knew he told me I was getting a healthy scratch, and I was going to be sent down the next day. And then that's kind of where Pembroke starts to tie into it, and I had to make a decision with that. Um, Sheldon Keefe, who's now the coach of the Maple Leafs, he had called me. He was the GM and coach of Pembroke, and he reached out to me and wanted me to go to Pembroke. And you asked me about the transition, and I was probably dead straight of just giving up. And I want to sign with the Cougars, Burlington Cougars. It's the Cougars, right?
Yep.
Junior A. It was close to home. I didn't want to go back to the Red Wings. I was going down a level, so I was like, I'm going down a level. I don't want to play with Pembroke. It's junior A. I might as well play junior A in Burlington and be home again. I was pretty depressed because of the situation that had happened with Gatineau, and I kind of mulled it over for a bit. I slept on it, and Sheldon was pretty persuasive. He said he scouted me. He told me he was the GM. He was the head coach. He told me he liked me. He told me that he is going to play me because he's the one scouting me and there's no one else to like guard. Where it's like when I was scouted to Gatineau, it was the scout that wanted me. Benoit Grew didn't want me.
Mhm.
So it's like he was the guy that wanted me. So his persuasion was good. He said he liked me. And I don't know. I don't really remember the decision, but I just said, you know what? Fine, I'll try Pembroke out instead of taking the easy route and just going back home to Burlington Cougars. And then it led me to Pembroke.
And it ended up being a pretty crucial decision, I would say, or deciding decision in your hockey career. If you go to Cougars, it maybe doesn't play out the way it has now. But Sheldon Keefe, obviously being a diehard Leafs fan as I am, know him very well, and he took a chance on you and believed in you, and brought you to Pembroke, and even that second year there, I believe you were 19, turning 20, and captain of the team, started there, and then I believe halfway through the season, he ends up getting the job in the Sioux. And this, like for me, this is such a crazy kind of transition because at this point in your career, to say, a player goes back to major junior is, to be honest, probably a long shot. I don't think many people think that that would happen. And obviously, Sheldon appreciated you for the type of player you were and the person you were, and ended up taking you. I believe a couple weeks after he got to the Sioux, he ended up taking you and kind of giving you another chance. So you can talk about that and just kind of what it meant to you, and obviously you end up putting it to great use.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's well worded. I was enjoying my time in Pembroke when I went to Pembroke. That back half of the year, I had a great time. Probably the most fun I've had in hockey in years. And then decided to come back as a 19-year-old. Sheldon made me captain. It was started out great. I was performing well, enjoying the year, and then he obviously got promoted to the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds, and I was really happy for him. And at the same time, I was disappointed to, lose my coach because he was the one that brought me in there, and I didn't know what was going to be the future for me. I'm 19. That whole year, I kind of knew my NHL career was looking slim, so I was looking at like CIS. I was very open to, doing that path and just keep trying. I still, even though my career was looking very slim, I still had this belief in me that maybe I could play in the NHL. I just wanted to keep pushing, and maybe CIS was that route. Although not likely, it could be the route. So that's what my mindset was. Um, so I was just trying to be the best I could be in junior A. He got promoted, and then I don't remember how quickly it was after. I think you just said 2 weeks. Maybe it was 2 weeks. He called me saying, Kyle Dubas, who is he's GM of Penguins now, um, he needed us to fill a center spot for the Greyhounds, and he was entrusting Sheldon to choose a player. And Sheldon said, "Do you want to try a 2 game tryout?" And I remember actually responding to him because I made the All Star uh, team for Junior A. I was like, "Well, can I still do the All Star game?" He's like, he gave me a smirk comment like, "Well, do you want to play in Major Junior or you want to make the All Star team?" And I didn't really have an answer to that, so I realized that it was kind of a dumb question of me to ask that, and I just obviously canceled going to the All Star game and did my 2 game tryout. And I guess my 2 game tryout was good enough that they kept me on for the rest of that year. And then I was a Sioux Greyhound for the rest of that year.
Pretty pretty crazy story, and I always tell people I think good things happen to good people, and obviously someone like yourself deserved another chance, and you had someone like Sheldon who believed in you and gave you that chance. And another cool thing, which I'm trying to word this the right way, but like you end up going to the Sioux there, playing 34 games, and you had 8 points. And as I said, you're turning 20 years old, and the big rule in major junior at this age is if you want to come back for your overage year, there's only, I believe, 3 overagers allowed per team. And normally, I would say in most cases, someone like yourself that is 20 years old and maybe has played in the league a couple of years and only puts up that amount of points, it's rare they come back. But obviously, Sheldon, as I said, had faith in you and gave you another chance. And, you end up basically rewarding him the next year with your play and I'm having a tremendous year. And, you know, going into that kind of decision making summer, like, had you thought about, is it time for me to go to school? Will I get a chance to go back for my overage year? Or had Sheldon been pretty clear with you from the beginning, like, you came here and you're going to get a full season next year with us as your overage year?
Honestly, that's a fantastic question. And looking back, there was nothing. There was no communication from Sheldon. I didn't think about anything. My mom is heavy into gossip pages and loves reading all that stuff. And she would fill me in about what fans are saying. And all the fans were saying things about how the 20-year-olds can't be what they are and I shouldn't be a 20-year-old for the team and all that negative stuff. My mom, she filled me in on it. And
Thanks, Mom.
yeah, no, thanks, mom. She meant it with a lot of love though, but um, I don't know. I went into that training camp just, I, I can't even remember why. I went in and I was just solid. I just played solid. And I remember not even knowing who the overages was until like halfway through the camp. And I realized that Sheldon, as you were kind of saying, without him actually saying it, he had only brought in 2 guys. There was only 3 of us. So it wasn't like there was competition or anyone really going to be cut. So in saying that, he did put faith in me without telling me it. And I didn't realize that till like halfway through. And for some reason, I don't know why, I just had this confidence that year. And I had a great training camp and I was playing really well. And the training camp I was having, even if there was another overager, I was playing really good hockey and I probably would have made it from that. And it just carried on to my season. And it was just like, I don't have an answer why I turned it around so much. Like offensively, it was just like a weird year where I just kind of came in. I knew a lot of the guys. I felt comfortable with the team. They were all so friendly. We got along. There was like a camaraderie with us, and it clicked. And then like Patrick Watling was one of the 20-year-olds. Like we clicked right away. We were like best friends really quickly, and our just play together, our chemistry was like undeniable. And I played with him the whole season, and it started from training camp, and it was just like maybe sometimes the stars just aligned, and I don't know why, just the chemistry flew, and I was playing really good hockey, and um, it led into the season, and I signed an NHL contract probably early November, so it happened so fast. And I don't have an answer of why. I go into every season with the same mindset that I just want to play hockey. I want to be the best I can be. And that year it just worked out for me. So
Pretty crazy. If you say 12 months, maybe 16 months, like, whatever it was, 12 months, 16 months ago, you had just kind of been released from Gatineau, sent down, taken on this crazy journey, not sure where to go, and then given a chance in the Sioux. And now you're signing an NHL contract. I want to get to that in a second, but first I need to bring up your teammates that you played with in the Sioux. The one guy actually filled me in on the Sheldon Keefe thing. I totally forgot about it, but played with a buddy of mine, Brandon Alderson, and then David Brohl, who's someone I trained with for years. So, any funny stories on these guys, or were they just? I mean, Broler is Broler. He's a funny dude, and Aldi, I think, kind of like yourself, was kind of like a late bloomer in the OHL. Like he took off his last 2 years.
yeah, so both great guys. Unfortunately, like that year, I would still say it took me a while to really open up. I was still very quiet. I wasn't very socially, let's say, active at that age. It honestly took me till I was maybe 21 until I was really an outspoken teammate. I was still very, very quiet for a long time. 21, 22 was when I finally kind of opened up more. Uh, when I played with those 2 guys, that was the first time I came to Sault Ste. Marie. So I was pretty intimidated going to that team, and I was kind of just doing my job. That was the year that Alderson kind of blew up a bit. And he signed an NHL contract at that point. I remember Broler was with the Leafs at the time, and I think he was hoping to be called up and stuff. Great guys. I don't really have any crazy funny stories about them. Unfortunately, I didn't really wasn't teammates with them too long. It was just a couple months. Um, so no, I don't have the dirt on them, unfortunately.
It's probably better. I can only assume some of the stuff wouldn't be eligible for this podcast. But you mentioned too, which I think is kind of a good point. Like you mentioned early on that you were kind of a late bloomer growing up. And I wonder, kind of looking at your career here, like you said, you don't know why that overage year clicked, but maybe it was kind of like one of those things where all your hard work, all of your perseverance through all the ups and downs was also connected with kind of the late blooming effect to where this year, you end up taking off and you end up signing an NHL contract. Like I never got to do that, but like for someone just hearing your story and what you went through, like that must have been such a gratifying moment. Like, signing in November, which is pretty early for your overage year, I must say. But like, how was it like receiving that contract? Kind of what was going through your head? Like, I'm sure it was a special moment for you and your family.
Yeah, no, it was incredible, and it did happen very fast, and it was just something about that year. Just things were flowing so well, and my confidence, honestly, confidence is everything. It's crazy how powerful that is, and it's something that is maybe not talked about enough or focused on enough. You focus on your stick handling, you focus on your shooting, you focus on your skating. It's just like confidence is it's I think it's been my kryptonite for my career. There's been times where my confidence is high and I've been a really good player, and there's times where it's low, and it's not like I'm not telling myself to have confidence. It's just sometimes it doesn't click. And it's just like in hockey, you have to make split second decisions, and if you even second guess yourself for a second, uh, you'll make the safe play. Doesn't mean it's the wrong play, but uh, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. But like if to be noticed in the NHL, you gotta be noticed. You can't just make safe plays. You can't make just the right play every time. You gotta shine. You gotta be a little special. And I don't know what it was about that year. It's just my confidence was so high. Um, and I was just nothing could stop me that year. And I signed the NHL contract, and it's weird. It's like I knew I deserved it. I worked so hard, and I was so proud of myself, and my parents were proud, and I was so happy. And it was just like it just kind of all clicked together at that moment.
No, that's a great moment for you. And just to touch on kind of what you talked about, I think that's so true. The confidence part. One of my good friends obviously played in the NHL, Juris, and he said that like his first year when he made the jump, he was confident making plays, and then he found years after, instead of keeping that confidence, he was more just like making the simple plays, as you mentioned, just to kind of stay up there versus what he had been doing the first year. And it's such a thin line, I feel, because when you get to that point, it's you obviously want to stay in the NHL as long as you can, play as long as you can. But when you sign that contract, you obviously end your season there in the OHL. Like, what was your first NHL camp like? What was that experience like?
Um, it was fun. Um, I went into it thinking I had confidence. So this is where the fine line happens. So this is where I bring up confidence as my kryptonite, because I always talk to myself like I would tell myself, "Ah, I'm a great player. I can do this. I have this. I know this. I can do this." And it's like when push came to shove, I played timid. I played safe. I did things where I didn't make mistakes, and I never did anything wrong, but I never did anything that was like, wow, look at him.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, who's that player? Uh, I was on the radar. They were looking at me to do something special. They wanted me to do something special, but I just did everything right. I didn't do anything special. And that's where I would, talk to myself and I'd be like, try to be confident, kind of do that. But when you have that split second, make a decision, you do this really safe play, which might not necessarily be a bad play, but it doesn't make you stand out. And I say that in the most proper way. Like, I don't want you people making toe drags and doing crazy stuff, but like it was just my experience that I found. I thought I had confidence, but I didn't. I was intimidated by the star names. I was intimidated, and it showed on the ice. I made simple plays instead of standing myself out.
That leads me to another good question here. Like when you're 21 there, obviously your first NHL camp experience, like you mentioned the kind of confidence thing, which I think is very important. But overall, I'm curious where your mentality was here. Did you feel at that age, at that time, that you were ready to make the jump to pro? Obviously, when you get drafted, there's still that chance that, hey, I might want to go to school, finish school. But did you feel you're ready to make that jump? And how was that first adjustment to you obviously played in the AHL at first. Like, how was that adjustment your first year pro?
It was a lot tougher. The level was a lot higher. Obviously, I thought I should have been in the NHL. That was my thought. I thought I was good enough to be in the NHL. Um, I obviously didn't show enough to prove I should be in the NHL full time, and I think it was a part of that. It was a part of my confidence. It's such a weird thing because I say I had confidence, but then I didn't show it. So it's like I don't even know how to describe that. It's just like it just kind of happen. And it's just there's so many good players in the AHL and guys fighting for jobs. It kind of just never clicked. And that jump's a big jump from major junior to AHL, NHL. It's massive, and there's a lot of good players that are older than you that have the experience, and you need to do something extra to stand out. And I just found I did a lot of good things, but I don't think I did anything that was crazy to make me stick.
With saying that though, not to take away from what you said, you still end up getting an NHL call up in your first full season there of pro. And I'm just curious, this is always a cool moment for anyone who gets to go through it. Like, where were you? Where did the game take place? Did your family get to see you? Kind of like what was that day for you when you kind of got that call up?
Yeah, so that was actually incredible. That was my first year in Portland, so I would have been 21. We played the Flyers at home in Arizona, and Arizona paid for my parents to come out, um, for my now wife to come out. Um, they paid for actually they didn't, that's who they paid for, and then my one of my best friends, Mark Rogers, paid to come out and see me play. And then Kelly Reed, who's I mentioned before, the instructor who is now my good friend, came out to watch me play. And it was just incredible, to play my first game in the NHL and have them all there. I think one of my first shifts, I took a face off and my helmet was knocked off, and I played an entire shift with my helmet off, which is pretty cool. Um, so no, it's just incredible. Went out and had dinner with them after. You're on a absolute high after that. So that was an amazing feeling to have them there and experience that.
Do you think it gave you, we're going back to confidence here because I think it's such a cool theme. You mentioned that the first year of pro, like it obviously was an adjustment, which it is for so many people at that young age, whether you're 19, 20, 21. Did it also give you kind of that confidence in yourself, being like, hey, I'm on the right path here. Like, this could lead to things, because obviously in your first year pro to get called up, like that's a big step. It doesn't happen to everybody, right?
Yes, I agree. And I think looking at it in hindsight now, going back, I think at times I got carried away with that. And instead of, trusting in the process, sometimes my mindset was too distracted where I was like, oh, I think I should be in the NHL right now. Oh, I think I'm good enough to be in the NHL. I should be in the NHL. I should do this. I'm good enough to do this. And it takes away from what you're doing at the level you're at right now. It's like I was focusing on the future instead of being in the now. And the now, the reality was I was in the AHL and I needed to do something there. But my head a lot of times was like I should be there. And that's not a good mindset to have, um, because it can take away from what you're doing in the present. And I still think I did very well, but could I have done more? Yes, I think I could have done more. And I think that's a maturing thing. And, if I look back, sometimes I wish there was other options. And I think there's a new rule coming out that like people that play in junior, it just came out or it's going to come out. People that play in major junior can go to NCAA and stuff. So for like someone that was like me, I kind of wish I could have done that path where you could play with older guys and have a path and mature a bit more. And then when you come out of that, you're like 24, 25, and then your first NHL opportunities are mid 20s. All my NHL opportunities were before the age of 24. And if I look back now, I don't think I was mature enough for those opportunities. Some guys are 18 and they're ready to do it. Me personally, I wasn't ready to do it. And it's just how it was. And I think my mind was, I was looking too far to the future instead of the moment.
It's real honest, and I think like, for us now to look back and kind of have that self-reflection, it's kind of what you learned. Um, One thing I will say is, which I thought was a great point, is kind of the focusing on the now versus the future, because let's be honest, we all dream when we're kids of playing in the NHL. Whatever level we're at, we all start thinking about the next level. If it's major junior, it's I want to play in the NHL. If you're playing tier two junior, it's I want to get a scholarship and then I want to go play pro. That's a thing that when you're done playing, you look back on and think, man, I should have just lived in the moment, enjoyed that more, and then who knows what would have happened, because when you do that, you put in the work every day, it makes the ride more enjoyable. And I think it opens up more doors, because it takes, like, as you mentioned, you were thinking about playing in the NHL versus, hey, at the time, your first year pro, you're playing in the AHL, which is a great achievement in itself, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. And if I just focus on things, I'm like, I'm here in the AHL. If I just, take more time into working on my shot, take more time into working on my skating and just doing more instead of just being like, oh, why did he get called up? I should be
Yeah.
the one getting called up. And you have that competition and, it sucks to have that, but that was a reality. You have the AHL is so competitive. You have guys that are your buddies, but you're also competing with them. And it's like, I'm so grateful for all my teammates. I'm so happy for all the ones that have played the games. But like in the moment, you're like, why him over me? Like I can do this. And it's just like, it is like that, and it's just, sometimes you get a little carried away. And if I could go back, I would get that out of my head and I would just focus on me in the moment. I would make myself better and I'd make my time in the AHL team I was on the best and I'd be the best player I can be at that moment and not even think about what would happen because that focus in that moment would reward you in the long end. So that's one thing that's hindsight for me to look back and it's like a mistake of mine.
For any of the young listeners out there, like I can't say anything more on that. That's 100% true. And it's easy for us to look back now, being older guys, me, myself being done. Like that's something that I think a lot of people regret. So I'm happy you said that. You brought up teammates. Two guys you end up playing with there, I believe, in the Portland Tucson system were Jordan Schwartz and Ryan McInnes, who now are actually teammates now of us here in Mannheim. You mentioned you kind of got a little more socially open, I would say, at the age of 21, 22. I believe you and Schwartzy roomed together when you played in the AHL at some point. How was it playing with those guys? And have you seen a change maybe in their game, then compared to now?
Yeah, so I mean, you can even ask Schwartzy. I guarantee who tells me he'll tell you that I was way different when we were roommates. I stayed in my room a lot. I just played video games. I didn't talk a lot. I'm a much different person now. Um, Mac McInnes, he met me in Tucson, so I would have been way more open then. Um, so he would have maybe a similar view of he has of me now compared to Schwartzy. But no, it is funny how small the hockey world is that like they're my teammates now and they were my teammates back then. Um, both were obviously great players. A lot of the times when Schwartzy was playing with me, I don't know why they did this with him, but he always played winger when he was in the AHL, and then when they called him up, they put him at center. So, Schwartzy was always super solid player. Um, he would take faceoffs in the AHL, but then play winger for some reason, and just smart, makes all the right decisions, and he could put up points and play defense, and solid PK, solid power play, just kind of a jack of all trades. Um, he was a great teammate to have, good leader. And then, McInnes, when I played with him back then, he was young, so it was interesting seeing him come in the league. His skating was great and his skill set was high. Like a fast. He was kind of like that change of. You could see the change of the hockey style happening when Mac's age group kind of came into the league. You could see that it was kind of turning into more of that high flying skilled game because a lot of players could skate like him and move like him. And you can see now through the years how the game has changed, and it's Mac's style of just being such skilled players, and he's offensive, and Mac can also play defense too. I'm not saying he can't. It's just he's just a great player all around, and seeing them grow like that, it's just it was interesting to see how Mac grew up now, because Mac was obviously a rookie when he came to Tucson, and he's 20, I think 8 now, so it's funny to see how the hockey world's so small and we end up connecting back again like that.
Both those guys a little bit older now. Both of them are fathers now, so it's that's also a cool change. One thing I will say about Mac, he'll tell you different, but dropping the gloves was not his forte in the AHL. I've seen a couple videos of him, and he didn't fare well. But that was kind of, as you mentioned, the change. Like a guy back when we were growing up, a guy his size would probably have that heart to his game, and Mac obviously was the kind of transition period there.
Mac's got that little twiggy alien body though, eh? Sorry, Mac. Love you, buddy.
True facts. Anyone who wants to see them, feel free to search his name on YouTube. There's some interesting tilts there, but he did get one win. He showed me as one win, so credit to him. He wasn't over on that, but
Is that official, or I've never seen that?
I don't know. I looked at it, I think back in September. I think I just gave it to him so he'd stop talking. But you end up playing, I believe, three seasons there in the Arizona Phoenix when it started, but Arizona system there. You end up getting called up kind of every year, and then it comes a point where you're getting traded to the Nashville system there. Someone getting traded. Like, was that just kind of? I know you can't control it, but was it also kind of like maybe at the time like a breath of fresh air for you? Like you felt like, a new organization, it's kind of a new door opening for me.
Honestly, yeah, Arizona, to be honest, they were a disaster. It was a disaster organization. I was with the same organization for the first 4 years of my professional career, and it felt like I got traded every year. We had a new head coach, a new city
Yeah, that's true.
every year. We switched GMs, I think twice. Uh, so it's like, I signed to Arizona under a GM, and then that GM would move on, and then I played in Portland, and then the next year happened, and we'd moved to Springfield, with a new head coach and a new GM, and then the next year we moved to Tucson. There was a new head coach and maybe the same GM that year. And then we finally stay in the same city for the next year, Tucson again, but it's a new head coach and then new GM. That's when Chaika came in. So it was just like Arizona was just such a honestly crapshoot. Like it was just like every year, I literally felt I was getting traded every year, and it's like every new year, the past year of what I did and proved to the organization, you almost had to redo again because there's new guys coming in. And then Chaika came in and he had, his stuff he had to do, and I guess I wasn't a part of that plan, and I ended up getting traded. So yeah, fresh air. Yes, it was. It was. Arizona was good to me, and I enjoyed my time there. But it was a bit of a crapshoot with how I felt the organization wasn't very organized and themselves at the time. They were still figuring themselves out big time.
Well, I forgot to mention too, like I believe when you ended up signing, that was like their last year being Phoenix too, I believe. Like they had just changed the name too. So like
They switched their name.
just to go into
Yeah.
continue your story there. Yeah,
They had like 11 different owners, and they were trying to, it might have been more than that. They were just trying to get money, and they switched to Arizona so they could have a larger brand of
Yeah.
financing, and yeah, it was just a bunch of stuff. I mean, I think it's still even happening right now that they're competing with U of A and stuff, and or sorry ASU. So
Yeah, now they're in that rink, still trying to get a rink deal done. So they're still struggling, which honestly sucks. Being a Toronto Maple Leafs fan, they're actually my second favorite team. I've always just been attracted to their kind of jerseys, their logo, and I hope they can get themselves kind of settled somewhere and get going. But kind of back to your career there, as I mentioned, you have going to the Nashville system and playing in Milwaukee there. I don't mean to skip ahead, but after Milwaukee for basically a year and a half, you end up signing it kind of home in Toronto. This is also the time, I always forget this because it feels like it was forever ago, but it wasn't. The year you signed in Toronto ends up being the kind of COVID year there, where COVID starts at the end. But um, as I mentioned, a buddy of mine ended up signing kind of after his career went to the Marlies, and you guys are treated tremendous there. But what was kind of the reasoning for you signing in Toronto there, and how did you like your 2 years there with the Marlies?
so signing in Nashville was unreal. Some of the most fun I've ever had in my hockey career with Nashville. Um, they actually loved me a lot, and I thought Nashville might have been the team I could have. Well, I guess it was Milwaukee, but obviously call up to Nashville might have been the team I could crack the NHL finally. I think what ended up happening was in my contract year of negotiation, I was a UFA. Um, Nashville is a bit of a they like to not offer as high, and they wanted to keep my contract exactly the same. And I was hoping to maybe get a little bit more value because I thought I was a valuable piece to them. And then that's where Toronto came in, and you know, Toronto offered me a large contract to go there. Uh, Sheldon Keefe was the coach of the Marlies. Kyle Dubas was the head GM of the Marlies. So in my mind, no brainer. Stars are aligning because unfortunately, sometimes if you're not a superstar, politics does help a bit. You need someone in your corner a bit. So I'm like, Sheldon Keefe knows me. Kyle Dubas knows me. I got some guys in my corner. Stars are aligning. So I signed in Toronto. I got more money. I thought it was a no brainer. Hindsight now, I kind of wish I never went to Toronto. I wish I stayed in Nashville, but the way Toronto treats you, they treat you like when I was mostly I was on the AHL team the whole time with the Marlies. You get treated like an NHL team. It's great. Um, all the food you can eat, everything's amazing. I think the one issue with Toronto is they have a lot of money, and uh, they just signed guys. We had maybe 9 NHL potential players that were on like one ways, and all in the AHL. All of them think they should be in the NHL, and you kind of just get caught in that group. And I feel like, unfortunately, I was a part of that. And I don't want to make any excuses or anything. It's just how Toronto kind of operates their thing. They got a lot of money and they get very good players, and it's just kind of how it went for me. And I ended up having a good season there with COVID, the bubble year. But it was just kind of a weird turn of events. So that was my experience in Toronto.
The second year must have been really weird too, with just like the uncertainty of. I remember talking to Schwartzy about this because I think the 1920 season was his last year in the AHL. He played in Belleville and they had a really good team, and the season or playoffs kind of ended abruptly, and then he ended up going to Europe. I think Jordan Murray might have been the same when I talked to Murs about it, but
He went the same year I did.
yeah, okay, so the year after,
Yeah.
but like, how was that bubble year for you? Like, were you ever nervous in the kind of in the summer there, like, because there was obviously rumors, are they going to play or are they not going to play? Like, kind of, where was your head at kind of through that?
Yeah, so that's where it was kind of a weird year, and I know a lot of guys were going to Europe, and I didn't really want to go to Europe yet. I still had this belief I could make the NHL, and Toronto talked very highly of me. They were like, I literally had a one-on-one meeting with Kyle, and he told me I was an NHL player, and the day he doesn't think I'm an NHL player, he'll let me know. So it's like this is what's told to my face. So I'm like, okay, and time goes on and I'm waiting and I'm waiting and I'm waiting and it's like it's November, it's December, and it's kind of going on. And I just had faith that Toronto was gonna, offer me a deal. And then when push came to shove, they didn't offer me a deal I thought, and it was just an AHL deal, and I was pretty disappointed in that. But I was like, you know what, maybe they told me that they had to figure out their contract issues, and I was like, all right, that's fine. Maybe I play good. They'll give me a two-way contract during the year. So I was winning the year positive. I had one of my better years in the AHL that bubble year, and Toronto never really rewarded me for it. And at the end of the season, I had a one-on-one with Kyle, and he said the exact same thing with me that he thinks I'm an NHL player, and it just wasn't the right timing for him in Toronto. And they'll wait and see. And then I waited that whole summer for an NHL deal, and teams were just uncertain because of COVID, and they were wanting to wait. And teams liked me, but they didn't want to give me a contract at the moment. Um, I don't want to jump to Europe, but I had two offers in Europe that I turned down, uh, which was decent money. And then I got a third offer from Wolfsburg late in the summer, and I was just like, I can't wait anymore. So I just took that one.
Did you feel like you were, I know you mentioned like it was obviously frustrating waiting and being told certain things over and over again, but like after kind of that second season in Toronto where you kind of heard the same things and you started to wait, did you mentally start to kind of open up to the possibility of Europe? Because that's like I feel like that's honestly a big decision for guys because guys have the fear and it's sometimes true, sometimes not. As soon as they go to Europe, it's hard to get back and they don't want to give up on that dream. But were you becoming more maybe honest and hey, like Europe's obviously not a bad lifestyle either. And as you said, you had turned down two offers before the Wolfsburg one to head over.
No, honestly, I was pretty naive. It took me a long time to realize that. It happened my whole career. It happened in Arizona, it happened in Nashville, it happened in Toronto. Uh, People of power will tell you what you want to hear, whether it's true or not. I don't know. I've been told my entire career I'm an NHL player, and here I am not making it. So, um, you get told a lot of things, and you keep pushing because you think you're gonna make it, you think you're gonna make it, you think you're gonna make it. And that year was no different. I thought, I had a good year. I thought the next year was gonna be it, and it was just I was not getting the deals I thought I was gonna get, and that Europe deal happened. Honestly, it happened in 3 days. I signed and I left in 3 days. It was one of the quickest decisions I ever made. And I didn't even think about Europe before that time. And all of a sudden, it was just like I was in Germany. I had no idea what happened. It was such a quick transition. It was wild. So I don't, I didn't really have any past thoughts about it. It was such a quick transition. You can ask anyone in my family about it. I was literally in Montreal on a mini honeymoon with my wife, and it happened so fast. So yeah, it was just quick, and it was all before I knew it. I was in Germany, and I was on the ice with Wolfsburg, and I had no idea what I was doing there, but I was there, so it was pretty
Danielle
wild.
must have been in pure scramble mode for
Yeah, she
packing.
was. Yeah, she was.
No, but that's good. And like a big reason why I started this podcast is just kind of share with people their stories, but also like there's no one path. And you kind of brought up a point that, people were telling you things, whether true or not, that you should have been at the NHL and then you end up having to go to Europe. I hear your story and I'm gonna be honest. I hear your story and I say you end up going to Europe and continuing to have success and kind of have a different window of a career because so many people think if you don't make the NHL or you don't stick, it's a failure of a career, which is not true. You've been able to have a great life. You've played in a lot of great cities. Thanks to Arizona, you played in a couple, maybe too many, but now you're living a journey over here with obviously your wife, someone you can travel with, share the moment with. So, how was it adjusting to Germany? Obviously, it happened quick. You end up going to Wolfsburg there. How was your kind of first season over there? I mean, obviously on the ice, you had a very good season. It seemed like an easy transition. The Europe game kind of fit you with the bigger ice and your skating. But how was the adjustment in general for you and maybe your wife too, Danielle?
For me, it was no different than any other year, except for the language barrier. Um, I could have been in Arizona. You're still away from home. It's just people speak different languages. So for me, I'm used to living away from home. This was kind of the first year for Danielle to live away, so it was a little rougher on her. Um, when you go over to Europe, you're typically in your late 20s, early 30s, and a lot of times people have maybe kids at that time. Uh, if you don't have kids, you're probably in your early 20s. So for us, for Danielle mostly, we were 27 at the time, no kids. A lot of the imports were early 30s with kids, and the people that were young without kids were the young Germans. So we kind of found ourselves in a weird spot. Not for me, because my teammates, your teammates, you get along, but for Danielle, she had a rough time, finding a friend group for probably half the season. So it was a rough transition for her. She had never lived away from home like that before either. She would always visit me in the places I had been, and the last 2 years I had played in Toronto, so it was easy for her to she lived with me, but it was a
Hmm.
drive away from seeing her family. So it was very tough for Danielle. For me, I mean, Wolfsburg was to this day my most fun season of my career. Um, I kind of got to finally get away from the political BS that is North America, playing in the AHL and trying to make the NHL and stuff. My teammates were amazing. I had such a fun time with those guys. Everyone was just down to earth. We were all hanging out. It was just so fun. And then, for Danielle, she finally found a niche where she hung out with the mothers and she hung out with the young, and she ended up loving the girls too. And it just we really embraced being in Europe. And then you get 2 breaks here too. So we got to travel in the breaks and we got to see Europe, which is something that, a year prior to that we never even thought about seeing. And I've been 3 years in Europe now. And the countries that me and Danielle have seen is incredible. So it's just the transition was actually pretty smooth and it was a lot of fun for the two of us. So it's actually been pretty incredible.
That's awesome to hear. And I tell people that all the time. Obviously, enjoy what you're doing, but also, travel because once you're over here, there's a bus, there's a train, there's like a quick flight for cheap prices to go to wherever. And as you mentioned, you and Danielle have got a lot of stamps on your passports now, which is good. After that year in Wolfsburg, you end up signing here in Mannheim. You're in your second year here. And I'm just curious to kind of like hear from your side. Someone that maybe had heard from guys how it is, but coming to Mannheim, obviously one of the bigger historical, I would say, organizations in Germany, and obviously, you know, when I came here this year working, I would say it's one of the most professional when it comes to like dressing room houses, like the houses you guys and like Schwartzy live in. You and Danielle are there by yourselves and have 4 or 5 bedrooms and 3 floors, like obviously, and for her living in I don't know how the setup was in Wolfsburg, but for living in kind of that
Community.
community there with kind of all the players there, all the wives and stuff, pretty might be easier for her too to kind of make friends and do stuff daily.
Yeah, no, Mannheim definitely does it right. They treat you amazing. Just as good as NHL teams. So I have no complaints there. It's been a pleasure being a part of the Mannheim organization. They do it right. The housing's, like you said, more than enough, and the facility is a lot. The trainers, probably the best trainers I've ever had in my entire career. Steve and Misha. So shout out to those two. Um, no, Mannheim, they treat the players right. Um, I like what the organization tries to do, so it's a fantastic organization.
Was it cool for yourself too? One thing that's very popular in Europe with the higher organizations or teams that do well in their season is being able to play in the Champions League. So obviously we did that this year. It was my first time seeing it live, and I think for you, it was your first time playing. Like, was that a cool experience for you? Like, kind of something different, like going to different countries, playing against other countries' best.
Yeah, that was cool. Started out really well for us. Obviously we got first place and then kind of got washed out of that, but it was cool to play different countries and essentially just play different leagues and see what different leagues have to offer. it's nice to like be able to see other countries and play other countries and stuff. So it is a cool experience. It would have been cool to go a little further and make something of it. So unfortunately, that wasn't our reality this year. But yeah, for me, Champions League, that was the first time I was able to do it. Obviously, with Wolfsburg, our team, it's kind of a weird way that it works, but I guess it's kind of the only way it could work with Wolfsburg. We made Champions League, but you don't receive the benefits until the next year. And I obviously signed with Mannheim. So it's always the future team that gets to receive the benefits of the past team. So, um, obviously with Mannheim, we were able to do that this year. And no, it was definitely cool. We went to Slovakia and, played in, where else did we play?
Finland.
We played in Finland, 2 games in Finland. So kind of an easy schedule for us to go to Finland twice and just kind of make that one trip. But no, cool to be up there and kind of experience that.
That was my first weekend working here. That was a great trip, and Slovakia was good too. And then yeah, as you mentioned, we ended up going to Switzerland there, and just kind of the way the tournament works, you end up playing a team that probably shouldn't have been as low as they were, and a great league like Switzerland ended up being the end of us in the Champions League, but that happens. Kind of switching gears here, I have a couple fan questions. Obviously, this is a very popular podcast, jokes, but couple of people sent some questions in here, and I wanted to ask you about them. The one we talked about off camera, but we'll bring it up on here. But I was told to ask you about your golf game and golf shoes.
Who told you to ask that?
My sources were name anonymous.
Because that's not a fan question. I mean, my golf game is it's absolutely solid. So I mean, I don't know what this fan sees, but if they catch me on the right day, I could beat anyone. So there's no worries there.
Do the shoes bring you good luck?
Yeah. So about the shoes, I mean, this thing is just it's getting out of hand. I mean, I got some Foot Joys. I mean, I don't know if anyone's ever heard that company, but it's pretty popular. So I mean, yeah, I mean, we could tag FootJoy in this, and maybe they'll toss me another free pair of shoes. But I rock FootJoys; they're comfortable. Some say they look like soccer shoes. I say they look like fantastic golf shoes, and I play some great golf in them. So I'd love to see what fan that is that brought that in. I probably know the name of that fan, but
He's not on this trip right now, so
yeah, I figured he wasn't.
um, that fan also brought up another great point. He gave me some high intel on you. Apparently you had a serious stiff neck in Springfield that required you to wear a neck brace or something. There's a story behind that. Do you care to elaborate?
Yeah, so this parent fan, this Mannheimer or whatever fan you are, who might have been around in Springfield, um, their intel is incorrect. And I did injure my neck, but I did never wear a neck brace. So, I mean, they love to keep bringing this up and manipulating other people by saying, "Didn't I wear a neck brace?" And then they remember that I wore a neck brace, but I never did. But they'll keep bringing it up. So,
All right.
you got any other questions from this random fan?
No, that's it. I guess I'll have to check my sources on that one. Kind of funny. One thing I just remembered because we were talking about on the bus the one day. How's your ongoing battle with Lululemon going, or with the? Remember you're
Oh,
trying
I
to do.
gave up on that.
You gave
Man. They
up?
were, yeah, they're pissing. I don't want to say bad words, but yeah, they were bugging me. So I'm gonna go to Canada and then figure it out person to person because they're not giving me anything. So I don't know what's going on with that, but they're not doing much with me right now. So I've never utilized a Lululemon discount in my 10 years pro, and they're giving me a lot of hassle right now. So it's kind of annoying.
I can't remember who I was talking to, but somebody I talked to recently was telling me, "Yeah, I haven't played in so long, and I just got my discount from this place," and it made me think of you right away. I was like, "Oh, God's battling with
Yeah,
Lululemon right
right.
now."
Jesus.
Um, okay, cool. That was a good little chat there about that stuff. But a couple more for you because obviously it's a game night. Want to have your beauty sleep. How long do you plan on like playing for? Have you ever thought about like that kind of path and maybe what you would do after? Obviously, as much as we want to, we can't play hockey until we're into our old years.
Yeah, it's crossed my mind. I don't really have a number. I still think I'm pretty young. I've said maybe sometimes 35, and I was like, well, maybe I'll play to 38, and it's just like I don't know. I have to be that age to know where I'm at. So I don't know if I can truly answer that question right now of how long I want to play for. All I know is that I feel very young right now, and I feel like I'm very far from that retiring point at this stage. Um, One thing that would solidify my retiring is I kind of want to try to set me and Danielle up as best as possible. Um, and that kind of leads into like what do I do after? I mean, I'm really into real estate and I'm into a lot of things. So maybe something along those lines. I've done a lot of investing in that, so I don't have an answer for you yet because I'm still kind of figuring that out, and I feel like it's still a bit off for me. But it is going to be a very weird transition to actually just not have hockey anymore because it has been my life for a long time. So I think I'll leave it at that right now because I don't actually have a full on answer for you, but it's definitely on my mind. Um, but I still think it's at least a decent time away that I don't have to worry about it too much.
I agree with you. I tell everyone, as long as you have the ability to play, everyone has other factors, whether it's family, injuries, a job opportunity, whatever it may be. If you have the ability to play and you're still doing something that you truly love and it's honestly a joy going to the rink every day, then play as long as you can. And that's a different age for everyone. So that's my advice to you. And yeah, you'll have plenty of time to figure out life after. I'm just always curious. Some people have a thought on what they might do. But as you mentioned, you still have plenty of time. I think you'll be all right. Um, Two more for you. There's one thing I like. I think I know the answer to this one, to be quite honest. But when you look back on the career you've had, did you think you would have it?
No.
Like, I know it's such a generic question, but I like to hear people's kind of perspective. Like we talked earlier about how much you grinded and kind of uncertainty you have, and then as you mentioned, the stars align there, and you get another chance, and look where it's taken you. But it's cool to it's I mean it's pretty obvious, like it's a one word answer, I think, but I always like to ask people kind of their thoughts on it, if they felt they would have the career they had, or if at some point they, as you mentioned, when you kind of got to your 21-year-old year, you felt like, okay, now I'm ready for the NHL kind of thing, or I could see myself playing.
Yeah, no, I don't think this is what I thought it would happen. And at the same time, I don't think that's a negative thing. It's just, you can't, I don't think you can predict it.
Mm-hmm.
And wherever it takes you is the way it takes you. And you just kind of got to brace it and just kind of keep moving forward.
No, I agree. That's a good way to look at it. Um, Last one here. I like to end the podcast with this question, kind of for our younger listeners out there too. What is one piece of advice or multiple pieces of advice, if you have them, that you would give kind of the younger generation and also give your younger self? So if you're speaking to these young athletes out there, as well as Tyler Gaudet back when he was 15, 17, 16 years old, um, what kind of piece of advice you would give yourself and them?
I kind of said it already. Um, and I was honestly told this by Shane Doan when I first went to Arizona. And I probably didn't listen to it as much as I wish I did, but it's just, just enjoy every moment. Um, what I was talking about is looking to the future too much instead of being in the present. And if you're not where you want to be in that moment, that's okay, but don't let it distract you from the moment you're actually in. And I think, as I mentioned to you, I let that maybe distract me a little more than I would like to admit. And I think if you're a younger player, just, you might not be at the level you want to be at, or you might not be where you are. But if you just keep doing the best you can do in that situation and just enjoy that situation, I think good things will come with that. And your career goes by so quickly that it's just to enjoy the little things like that.
True words never spoken. Enjoy the process and the whatever it is, the typical saying. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon, and you want to enjoy every moment of it because, as you said it, we're still young, obviously in our 30s right now, but
You're considered old.
I'm also considered old, being older than you, but you still, I don't know about you, but I still think about being, 18 years old again, stuff like that. And you remember, you know, how easy life was. And you think about, oh, I can't wait to be this age. I can't wait to play pro. And here you are playing whatever it is, 7 years, 8 years, 10 years later. And it's crazy how fast it went by.
Well, it's just crazy. You know, on my age now, I'm 30 now, but when I was 24 in the AHL, the way the organization made me feel was they made me feel old at 24. So it happens quick.
Mm.
So it's just, you know, just take every moment as is. Because, like I said, when I was 24, I was made to be an old person. And that's just how quick hockey is. You know, it just happens fast.
You were an old person, but they weren't paying you the old person salaries there in the AHL. They just double standards. But no, man, I appreciate you taking the time. As I said, we're kind of doing research on you and finding out some stuff I didn't know. It's crazy how your career went, and like you're one of those, I would say, hope stories for anyone out there that might go through something where they play at a level and get sent down and think it's over, and look at where you've came, man. So I think that's a lot to be proud of in terms of your perseverance, your work ethic, and just the person you are as well. Knowing you now a bit more, and obviously when we first met each other, you were probably a quieter guy too when we met each other back in the Burlington days. But
a little 4-on-4 together too.
Yeah. I don't know how good I was in those. I can't. The one year we won, but I
have to win a championship.
Yeah, we had a good time. That was a fun night too. No, but it's great, man. It's good to see like where you've come, and you know you're still, as you said, you're still young, 30 years young. Still got lots of hockey ahead of you, man. So keep that confidence up, keep believing in yourself, and thanks again for sharing your story, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, buddy. Appreciate it.
For those listening, go give this guy a follow on Instagram. I'll tag him in all the posts here. Give us a follow on YouTube and every other social media platform with all the streaming services, Spotify, Apple Music, you name it. Thanks for listening, and until next week, cheers and ciao.